Morning, y'all. It's another day out here in the shop, and today we're going to look at what you can do to improve your Harbor Freight bandsaw. So just about everybody at some point ends up buying one of these Harbor Freight bandsaws because they're good, they're cheap, they're thousands cheaper than buying a brand name real good bandsaw, but there are some things you can do to it to improve it. And so what I'm talking about is these Harbor Freight bandsaws right here. 4x6 rectangular. So the first thing I did with mine is I got this Rubbermaid cart, which I had laying around, and then I built a new chassis for it out of I think this is some 2x2 square tubing and some 1-inch square tubing. It's all thick wall and it's all welded together, and then there's tabs welded in to hold the saw to the frame on both sides. And the reason I did that is because one of the biggest problems with this saw is the little sheet metal legs that come with it when you buy it are basically worthless. They're absolutely horrid. So now this is mounted on this cart and I can move it around the shop wherever I need it, and it's nice and solid. And so yeah, there's that. So in building the frame, I went ahead and added an extended table out this end, and what that does is that allows your stock, you can clamp your stock on the outside rather than on the inside if you need to. It just gives you more options for setting it up to cut something. You can see I added brackets in here for a coolant sprayer for when I've got to cut real hard material, and it's just a basic suction coolant sprayer. You take the little hose here, stick it in the jug of mixed water-based coolant, hook your air line up to it. It's got a regulator, and then you got an on-off here, and then your coolant sprayer, standard coolant sprayer. So you can spray coolant on it if you're cutting something hard that's going to put a lot of heat into the blade. So we did that. So another problem with these Harbor Freight saws is the oh, what's the word I'm looking for? The downward force thing. It comes from the factory with a spring set up. So what I'm talking about is when you have the saw up like this and you're cutting something, you have a way to regulate how fast this comes down. So what I did is I took all that spring mess off of there, and you can see it's creeping down nice and slow right there, and we can stop it by turning that valve right there. So what I did, I took all that spring junk off of it that came with it from the factory, and over here on the back side, again, the brackets are mounted into this frame that I built for the saw. I've got a cylinder. Now this is a scrap, this is actually a pneumatic cylinder that I got out of the scrap bin at work, but it needed a seal, and so I put an O-ring in it. And you probably wouldn't want to run air or hydraulics in it, but it works just fine for regulating how fast this saw goes down. So we got that in there, and then I modified this and put a bolt through it into the arm where the spring used to go, and got Polyflex hoses coming up here, and you'll see I've got, this is a flow regulator, and then this is an on and off valve. So right now I've got it off, and if you turn it on, you'll see the saw starts making its way down again. very slowly, kind of the way you want it. And then the cool thing about that is, let me raise it back up and I'll show you. So you can stop it from going down with this. Just turn it off, right? But if you want it to go down faster, say you're cutting plastic or something softer, then all you have to do is turn this flow regulator out, and you'll see you can adjust the speed of it with that flow regulator. So you turn it back and then it goes back to moving real slow again. And I just mounted all that on another bracket off of the frame and a scrap piece of aluminum. Everything, all this stuff was all extra pieces from projects and scrap out of the scrap metal bin. These brackets, that's why I don't throw anything away, because you never know what you might be able to use it for. So that's the downforce. And then the other modification I made to it is to the vise here. And what I did, now you'll see when I put that up, it stops short of being vertical, but I do not use this as a vertical saw. These are just not very good vertical saws. It's a horizontal saw. So you got your vise here where you crank it in and out, and you'll see I've added a jack bolt to it. And basically all I did was drill a hole through this half of the clamp and thread a jack bolt in there, and I got a couple lock nuts on there and what have you. And what this is for is if we screw this all the way out here, and we get us a little skinny piece and stick in here. Let's say you needed to cut it right there, right? And so you crank this thing down, and what happens, you'll see how that cocks and doesn't clamp, because this kind of vise is made to have something all the way through it. If you have something all the way through it, then it'll clamp down tight, just like that. But if you're just trying to clamp the edge of something, it doesn't work, because it pivots on this bolt. So what you do is you got your piece you want to clamp, and you kind of get that close, and then you run this in. It'll take a minute because we're here, but if you run that in till it just touches, then you can clamp this down, and you'll see the vise stays straight. This didn't move, and now that's clamped down. So that's what the jack bolt's used for, and that keeps the stuff from popping out of the vise. And then when you don't need it, you just unscrew it out of the way. You don't have to unscrew it far. Like say you're going to use it for that, you just unscrew it back far enough where it's not touching, and you're good to go. You just leave it in there. So those are basically all of the improvements that I made to my Harbor Freight saw. And so we'll open this valve up and let this thing run on down. Close our valve back up. And that's it. And as you can see by the piles of swarf all around it, it's been used a ton. And that's not, I mean, I've cleaned this thing several times, so it gets used quite a bit. And then with this car, of course, I got more storage for junk beneath it. But so that's it. That is how I improved my Harbor Freight bandsaw and made it more useful for me. And I know there's a lot of videos out there on YouTube about how to do this and the way different people do it. But I figured I'd make one because everybody does everything a little bit different. Everybody's scrap pile has a little bit different stuff in it. So you never know what you got laying around that you can use for something. So hopefully this has helped somebody out. And We appreciate y'all watching, and we'll catch you in the next video. Y'all have a good one.